Hi, welcome to On Air. I'm Klara Syrewicz. How about ringing up the US Director of National Intelligence on her personal number? Until recently, it was online for all to see. Surprised? So were the country's security services. Which brings us to the inevitable issue of the Trump administration's competence and what US allies can or can't do as intelligence cooperation gets very messy. And in our report, we'll have a look at how social media algorithms are influencing teenagers. You probably know what crown jewels mean in slang, in intelligence slang, of course. Grabbing them equals getting a hit on the government's top tier, like the VP or the Intel chief. And if you've been blissfully off the grid, we're talking about Signalgate, which some are calling the biggest national security breach in US history. Plenty has been said about this story, so we'll skip the obvious. Instead, let's view it from the perspective of intelligence services, especially the Five Eyes and European agencies. The first takeaway from that group chat is the government's decision-making protocol, or lack thereof. Why is leaking it a problem? Because your enemies can learn the chain of command for specific missions, who leads on what, who reports to whom. As Beth Sanner, former Deputy Director for National Intelligence, puts it,
this shows that they don't have a policy process. You should not be having a disagreement about the timing of a strike after the president has signed off on it.
So what this shows to both enemies and allies is that decision-making is incoherent and thus can be manipulated. The other disaster is that everyone was using private phones. Authorized secure devices would prevent their users from even downloading Signal. China had already breached administration phones before Trump's election, so the risk was hardly news. Worse, German intel repeatedly warned the US that Russia had infiltrated Signal. And it just takes one infected phone to have all others in a group chat compromised. Security officials, regardless of ideology, just want competence. This level of negligence has left both allies and the Pentagon stunned. Here's a fun detail hardly talked about. Stephen Witkoff, the property developer who played golf with Trump and thus got tasked with simultaneously bringing peace to the Middle East and ending the war in Ukraine, was in Moscow at the time. He denied bringing his private phone with him, but since he was reading that war plan, it's safe to say his phone was a goner as soon as he reached the airport. Now, it also turns out Mike Waltz had a second group chat on Signal about Ukraine negotiations. That must have come in handy. With another layer to this crab cake, Der Spiegel released a trove of private passwords, phone numbers and emails belonging to Mike Waltz, Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard, all pulled from hacked data dumps and commercial providers. Most were still in use, some linked to social media profiles, Dropbox accounts, WhatsApp and, yes, Signal accounts for Gabbard and Waltz. Straight after, the Washington Post revealed that Mike Waltz and other members of the National Security Council were also using personal Gmail accounts for government business. What's truly absurd, though, is that even the chat members seem to assume in their conversation that the info would leak. Consider the Israeli agents embedded in Yemen informing on the location and ID of the target. That must have been a fun week for them after Waltz revealed their existence in the group chat. The Wall Street Journal reported that Israeli officials privately complained to the US about Waltz. Next time, they'll likely think twice before putting the lives of their agents in the hands of a 50-year-old man who uses emojis to celebrate killing people. But beyond the main headline, there are other signs that working with US intelligence is becoming risky, even for US agents. Elon Musk's cost-cutting agency Doge has already caused multiple security lapses, including exposing a CIA facility and pushing the CIA to send an unclassified email listing new employees by first name and initials, which, with AI geolocation and open source intel, makes it a breeze for foreign intelligence services to identify them. And ominously, on March 12th, Elon Musk visited the NSA to meet with its chief. I hate to think what will come out of this. Mishandling sensitive information isn't new in Trump world. Remember when he tweeted a top-secret image of an Iranian rocket site or shared Israeli intel with the Russian foreign minister? But the real danger now is how intelligence has become more politicized or possibly even shared with adversaries. It's enough to look at the three main figures leading the US intelligence and security apparatus. Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, dubbed Russia's girlfriend on Russian TV because of her eagerness to push its propaganda and conspiracy theories. And let's not forget her stint in a yoga-themed cult. Or Kash Patel, Director of the FBI, whose intelligence credentials include conspiracy films funded by Russian businessmen and writing a children's book, where Trump is a broad-shouldered king battling the wicked Hillary Clinton, while the benevolent wizard Kash foils her evil plot. As for military intelligence, it is run by Pete Hegseth, a former Fox News weekend anchor, and I am uniquely placed to tell you that doing this job does not qualify you to handle national security. And I don't even have a documented history of addiction, bankruptcy, or sexual assault. There's plenty cause for concern, especially in Europe. But for all allies, including Five Eyes countries like New Zealand and Australia, the worry isn't just Trump's dalliance with autocrats. It's the US's radical departure from the rules-based order, including making territorial claims against liberal democracies. Intelligence sharing has already become a political tool, with the US threatening to kick Canada out of the Five Eyes. That's why Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, during his meeting with the French president, publicly discussed a bilateral intelligence sharing agreement, basically signalling to other partners that trust and professionalism need to be maintained, even if it means going around the US. Much like their response to US tariffs, other allies like Japan and South Korea are strengthening bilateral ties. Meanwhile, Europe is pushing to integrate continental intelligence services. Of course, concerns over sharing depend on whether it's human intelligence, humans, or signals intelligence, SIGINT. The CIA, America's human agency, has liaison officers with nearly every allied service, forming a vast network that cooperates on espionage and covert actions. For example, the CIA's Russia House, which spies on the Kremlin, shares more with some European counterparts than with their own service chiefs. Intelligence cooperation is often considered low politics, largely unaffected by the high-level decisions of presidents and prime ministers. But with rising concerns over American leakiness and the political direction set by its leaders, a large portion of HUMINT will likely be scaled back or hidden. As Mark Polymeropoulos, former CIA Chief of Operations in Europe and Eurasia, puts it,
the bottom line is, there is a sacred obligation that any intelligence organization has to its assets. Western intelligence services will sanitize things that they had shared in the past.
With signals intelligence, though, it's a different story. Take the Five Eyes SIGINT. Anything intercepted from the internet, phone calls, satellite comms, or even Xi Jinping's smart fridge. It's so tightly automated and shared in real time that no one can put a stop on who gets what. To avoid duplication, national agencies focus on different areas and skills. Canada runs a highly specialized analysis of data collected by other partners and has led SIGINT in the Arctic since the 40s. Britain deals with cryptography and provides most intelligence on Russia. Australia's location is crucial for tracking China. A glance at the global map of undersea internet cables shows which countries have access to which connections. Untangling this conglomerate would be a disaster for everyone involved, both immediately and in the long term. The US also relies on European agencies to follow the sun on urgent intelligence, counter-terrorism and organized crime. Europeans have more eyes in some regions, and their overseas bases provide access to transmissions that would otherwise be out of reach. But even the Five Eyes, turning 80 next year, isn't a partnership of equals. The US provides about 2/3 to 3/4 of all intelligence collection. The UK contributes around 10 to 15%. Australia, New Zealand and Canada share the final 10%. Tin Alliance relied upon daily by agencies that haven't operated independently in decades. Given Trump's distrust of allies and his zero-sum beliefs that gains for others are losses for America, there's widespread fear that he might abruptly cut off allies, either as leverage or just to make a point, even if it means shooting himself in the foot. The UK and other European agencies may quietly work to replicate capabilities once left to the US, like intelligence critical to Ukraine's defense. Similarly, it's worth considering a scenario where Canada is abruptly ousted from the Five Eyes, possibly a step towards destabilizing the country if served alongside tariffs and restrictions on the movement of people. As historian John Ferris noted in The Economist, in the past, setbacks among intelligence services were resolved because American agencies understood the value of these partnerships.
Today, American spies are frightened of the future to an extraordinary degree and unsure of where the chainsaw will go.
With ill-prepared loyalists in top positions, mass firings and the purge of senior staff, like those who resisted removing agents involved in the January 6th prosecutions, the stage is set for enemy services to recruit disgruntled employees from federal agencies. It's as if the US were sleepwalking itself into a security crisis. And the personal relationships, the shared strategic aims, and above all, trust, are all being damaged. If you're a realist and international relations are just an amoral contest between self-interested states, then sure, trust should be met with skepticism because believing in good intentions is risky. And egged on by Trump, Americans, including Democrats, are increasingly learning to distrust their allies, as reflected in growing negativity in opinion polls. The disillusioned may form closer cooperations, hoping that from crisis comes opportunity. Unfortunately, a tough period of adjustment is likely coming first. In today's world, teenagers spend more time scrolling and communicating digitally than on activities once deemed attractive. Behind every swipe lies a powerful algorithm meticulously designed to capture and hold their attention. Are tech giants responsibly managing their power, or are they exploiting vulnerabilities? And who should step in when young lives are impacted? Parents, governments, or the platforms themselves?
Social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook utilize sophisticated algorithms designed to maximize user engagement. For young users, this often results in exposure to content that can be addictive or harmful. A 2023 advisory from US Surgeon General Vivek Murthy highlighted that 40% of children aged 8 through 12 are active social media users, despite age restrictions. The report indicated that teens spending more than 3 hours daily on social media are more susceptible to sleep disorders, anxiety, and depression. The question of regulation is complex, and the United States is leading the charge. In New York, the Safe for Kids Act was signed into law in June 2024, requiring parental consent for users under 18 to access algorithm-driven feeds and prohibiting notifications to minors during late-night hours. European democracies are trying to catch up to the US. In Denmark, activists and parents alike are worried about the impact social media giants can have over young people.
There is a need for actual age verification. There is a need for age-appropriate content requirements. There is no point in 12-year-old children watching content that not even adults should watch.
Responsibility for safeguarding young users is a contentious issue. Many believe that the weight should not fall solely on parents. They do, however, play a crucial role. Australia, meanwhile, introduced a world-first ban on social media for children under the age of 16. This measure, however, is unlikely to see worldwide adoption.
It will certainly steer a debate also in Europe about how to increase the protection of children and youth on social media platforms. I'm not sure if Europe will go for the same instrument.
As the debate continues, the need for a collaborative approach becomes evident. Tech companies, parents, educators, and policymakers must work together to create a safer digital environment for young users.
So many urgent ethical questions written in lines of code. Thank you for watching, and please join us next week.